just after giving birth and coming out of the delivery room. My husband said he wanted to discuss something with me. You wanted to have this child, so you'll have to take care of it by yourself in the future. Don't always count on others. My mother doesn't owe you anything. I nodded and said, no problem. So, after finishing my confinement period, I took the baby and went back to my parents' home. My parents happily took the baby. From now on, this child will take our family name and be registered in our household. We finally have someone to carry on our family business. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. After the operation ended, the nurse wheeled me out of the delivery room and said with a smile that both the mother and the baby were safe. But Kenneth's face didn't look good. He said in a solemn voice, Melissa, I want to discuss something with you. You wanted to have this child yourself, so you'll have to take care of it by yourself in the future. Don't always count on others. My mother doesn't owe you anything. I nodded and asked, what else? Kenneth was a bit surprised to see me so calm. He continued, you also need to change your temper. As long as you have clothes to wear, that's enough. Don't buy cosmetics either. You're a mother now. You always spend money recklessly. Saving is the most important thing in life. I wasn't surprised at all that he could say such things. After all, I had known what kind of people his family were for a long time. When the prenatal checkup was done before, my mother-in-law took the film and asked around for favors everywhere. When she found out it was a girl, she immediately pulled a long face. Girls are all a waste of money. The first child must be a boy. My mother-in-law asked me to abort the child. After being refused, she privately found the doctor. She stuffed a red envelope to the doctor, asking him to secretly perform an abortion on me, but was scolded back by the doctor. What era is this? How can you still be so sexist? This is illegal. We have to be responsible for the parturient and the fetus. After Kenneth finished speaking, the smile on the nurse's face almost faded, but I still accepted it very calmly. Okay, I see. Seeing that I was so sensible, Kenneth's face finally looked a bit better. I only took half a day off. I still have to go to work in the afternoon. You have a good rest. I'll come to see you tomorrow. The nurse couldn't help but say, your wife has just had an operation. It's better for the family member to stay and accompany her. I interrupted her and said understandingly, it doesn't matter. Work is important. You can go and be busy. Miss Nurse, please send me back to my room. The maternity hotel was on the upper floor of the private hospital. I had already booked the most advanced package. 6 baby nurses and confinement nannies were all ready. I called them in front of me and assigned their work. Your responsibilities are very simple. First, take good care of me and the baby. Second, don't allow anyone other than me to get close to the baby, especially those who claim to be my husband and mother-in-law. Don't let them come near even a step. The reason why I could accept it so calmly was that I had made a decision a long time ago. From the moment I gave birth to the child, it was the beginning of my complete separation from this family. I had a comfortable and peaceful rest in the maternity center for one night. The next morning, Kenneth called. His tone was still very impatient. The private hospital charges are so expensive. Get out of the hospital as soon as possible if there's nothing wrong. At the end of the year, there are a lot of things to deal with in the company. I don't have time to pick you up. You can take the bus by yourself. At this time, I was leaning against the soft pillow, drinking the soup cooked by the nutritionist, and listening to the care worker carefully introducing the postnatal rehabilitation programs. I said slowly, there's no hurry. Let's wait until the confinement period is over. Kenneth gritted his teeth and said, you still want to have your confinement in a private hospital. Do you know how much that costs? I smiled and said, 200,000 yuan. I just swiped the card. It's still warm. Do you want to see the bill? As soon as I finished speaking, Kenneth exploded. I wanted to change the car. And you said there was no money. But now you spent 200,000 yuan staying in a maternity center. Melissa, are you crazy? Refund the money for me immediately. Go home. Ignoring his hysterical roaring on the other end, I hung up the phone and threw it aside. When choosing the hospital for giving birth, I had a disagreement with Kenneth. He thought the private hospital was too expensive and unnecessary. When my mother gave birth to me, she didn't even go to the hospital and didn't spend a penny. So many women give birth. Why are you so delicate? I said, I can pay for it myself. Kenneth's face immediately changed on the spot. When will you change this habit of spending money recklessly? Give me your bank card for safekeeping as soon as possible. Otherwise, You'll surely bankrupt this family sooner or later. All my savings were in one bank card. Kenneth didn't know the exact amount in the card, but he had tried to get his hands on it several times, either to change the car, or for investment, or to lend it to his best friend. But every time I refused him with various excuses. He became angry from embarrassment and said that he wouldn't give me a penny in the future and that I had to raise the child by myself. He thought he could threaten me with money, but he didn't know that what I lacked the least was money. I am the only daughter in City A, and my family is in the jade business. Although we can't be called extremely wealthy, we have also accumulated some family property. My parents had high expectations of me and doted on me a lot. I also didn't let them down. I had excellent business skills and managed the family business in an orderly manner. It's just that seeing that I was already 30 years old and still didn't have a boyfriend, my parents were a bit worried. They bought the highest level membership on a blind date website. Kenneth was a potential male guest recommended by the website. He was 2 years younger than me, 185 meters tall, had an excellent education, and a stable job. My parents were very satisfied with him. Although he comes from a single-parent family, it can be seen that he is a hardworking and progressive young man. As long as you live a happy life, that's more important than anything else. Kenneth and I did have a sweet time. During the early days of our relationship, he was considerate and caring towards me, taking great care of me. I once thought that I had met my true love. Until the 5th month of my pregnancy, Kenneth finally showed his true colors. Perhaps he thought he had completely trapped me, so he finally revealed his true face. He said that we could only get the marriage certificate if I gave birth to a boy, and the bloodline of the Zhao family couldn't be broken. He said that it was a virtue for women to endure hardships. When his mother was pregnant with him, she could still work in the fields even when she was 7 or 8 months pregnant. He said that once a woman gets married, she should follow her husband, and I must get rid of my delicate and spoiled habits to be qualified to enter his family. Such a change surprised and angered me. I quarreled and made a scene with him. But Kenneth seemed to have completely changed into a different person. He was fierce, irritable, and seemed to be on the verge of hitting someone at any moment. I thought about cutting my losses in time and aborting the child to start over. But the doctor told me that due to my physical condition, this was likely to be the only child I could have in my life. So after careful consideration, I decided to give birth to this child. She has my blood flowing in her body. Why can't she be my child alone? Kenneth thought he had trapped me with the child. But he didn't know that I had already made the decision to raise the child without the father. Half an hour later, the staff of the maternity center knocked on the door and said that there was someone outside claiming to be my husband and asking to see me. I shook my head. I'm not married. Where did I get a husband? He must be a scammer. Don't let him in. I knew Kenneth would come looking for me, but I wasn't worried at all. The reason why I chose this maternity center in the first place was because of its perfect security measures and emphasis on customer privacy. As long as I didn't give the permission, Kenneth couldn't possibly see me. I chose to endure before just because I was inconvenient in the late stage of pregnancy and didn't want to have a conflict with them. Now that the child was born, it was time to draw a clear line from this family. I called my parents and told them that the due date had come earlier and I had given birth to a daughter. My parents were very surprised and immediately wanted to fly from City A to see me. But I said straightforwardly, Mom and Dad, I've separated from Kenneth. I plan to raise the child by myself. I made this decision without discussing it with you. I'm sorry. I made this decision a long time ago. But in order not to worry my parents, I chose to hide it. My mother was very anxious. Melissa, have you suffered any grievances? My father immediately made a decision on the spot. Separate if you have to. It's not a big deal. Let the child take our family name and be registered in our household from now on. At the strong request of my parents. A few days later, I went home with the confinement nannies and baby nurses. I roughly told them what Kenneth had done. My mother held my hand and shed tears of distress. No wonder you've lost so much weight. You've suffered such great grievances. I said helplessly. How did you tell that I've lost weight? Even when I was pregnant, I never mistreated my body. Not to mention that during this period, with the care of professional nutritionists and postnatal rehabilitation therapists, my complexion is even better now than before giving birth. My father said guiltily, it's my fault for not recognizing the person clearly, which made you encounter a beast like Kenneth. I shook my head. It's not your fault. He pretended too well to be a potential male guest recommended by the blind date website. Kenneth's conditions were actually not bad. He had a postgraduate degree, a car, a house, a monthly salary of over 10,000 yuan, and he was tall and decent looking. But after being with him, I found that he wasn't as glorious as he seemed on the surface. Kenneth came from a single-parent family. When he was young, his father abandoned the family and ran away with another woman. His sister dropped out of school and got married early. Now she has just given birth to her third child, and her family life is in a mess. His mother has a lot of chronic diseases and needs to take medicine for conditioning every month. Kenneth's salary has to be used to buy medicine for his mother, subsidize his sister and brother-in-law, and pay off the mortgage and car loan. He almost overdrafts every month. But even knowing these things, I didn't care. Why should a family haggle over every detail? As long as Kenneth and I truly loved each other, I didn't mind helping them financially. After all, what I lacked the least was money. But I didn't expect that Kenneth was so good at pretending. He took a fancy to my identity as the only daughter in City A, pretended to be gentle and considerate, and made me fall deeply in love. He thought he could trap me by having a child, but he overestimated his own importance. I have the ability to support myself. I don't have to have him. I brought the capable confinement nannies and baby nurses home with me. With their care, my parents can also have an easier time. The baby was lying in the swaddle, with curved eyebrows and eyes, waving her little hands babbling. My mother was amused. Oh, this little face is just like Melissa's when she was a child. My father also came over. It really is. Especially the eyes. They are exactly the same. The atmosphere at home was very harmonious and joyful. We were enjoying the happiness of family here. But Kenneth couldn't hold back anymore. During this period, Kenneth hadn't contacted me. I knew that he was waiting for me to give in voluntarily. It would be best if I could admit my mistakes with tears, hand over all my savings voluntarily, and kneel down to beg for his forgiveness. But after waiting and waiting, I still didn't show any sign. He finally couldn't help it and called. Melissa, have you had enough of this nonsense? I smiled and said, who are you? Kenneth was furious. I'm your husband. I'm the father of your child. I was teasing my daughter and said slowly, you can eat anything you want, but you can't say anything you want. I'm still single. Where did I get a husband? Kenneth and I had never gotten the marriage certificate. When I knew I was pregnant, I also suggested getting married as soon as possible. But Kenneth always made excuses to delay. It's cold now. You should go out less since you're pregnant. You should put your body first. Why don't we get the marriage certificate after the baby is born? It will be a double happiness. Until he found out that I was having a daughter. Kenneth finally showed his true colors and changed his tune. My mother said that we can only get the marriage certificate if it's a son. If you don't want to abort the child, just leave it like this. Kenneth was sure that I would make a compromise. After all, in the worldly view, having a child out of wedlock has a greater impact on a woman's reputation. But the only thing he miscalculated was overestimating his own importance. Kenneth thought he had given me a good chance to make up. But he didn't expect to get such an attitude. He was so angry that he blurted out, Melissa, it's still not too late to admit your mistakes. Otherwise, don't even think about stepping into my house again. You'd better think clearly. You've already had a child. Besides me, who else would be willing to take you? He thought he had caught my weakness, but I just wanted to laugh. I have never thought that a man is a necessity in life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have waited until I was almost 30 to be willing to go on blind dates. Choosing to raise the child without the father wasn't an impulsive decision but a well-thought-out one I made after careful consideration. Even without Kenneth, I'm capable of raising the child well. Whether it's in terms of material things or spiritual care, I'll give her the best. I deliberately provoked him by following his words. Why wouldn't anyone want me? I have 5 houses and 3 cars under my name, and there's over 6 million yuan in my bank card. With so much property as a dowry, why should I be afraid of not finding a man? Kenneth only knew that I had money, but he didn't know just how wealthy I was. We met through a blind date initially. Later, during our time together, I realized that Kenneth had a strong sense of pride. To take his feelings into account, I chose to hide part of my financial situation. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be a fortunate mistake that helped me see his true colors. These words left Kenneth stunned and ringing in his ears. He said through gritted teeth, I don't believe it. Where did you get so much money? I said indifferently, believe it or not, it's up to you. You've been to my house, haven't you? Maybe you can check the housing prices here first. Kenneth had always thought highly of himself. He had excellent academic performance since childhood. By his own efforts, he was admitted to a prestigious university, found a good job, bought a house and a car, and settled down in the city. Among many of his peers, he might have been an outstanding one, but the gap between us couldn't be bridged simply by hard work. For example, this villa of my family in City A, although not in the best location, still has an average price per square meter of over 6 figures, at least based on Kenneth's income. He could never afford to buy it in his lifetime. As the saying goes, to truly defeat someone, you need to attack their pride. I just wanted him to realize the huge gap between us. That night, Kenneth called me again. His tone and attitude had become much milder. Presumably, after checking the housing prices, he had a new assessment of my value, so he was willing to say some nice words to coax me. Melissa, I've thought about it. We're both at fault in this matter. We were both too impulsive. But in any case, you shouldn't have left without saying goodbye with our daughter. My mother has cried several times at home because she misses the child so much. Let's meet first and have a good talk. His words sounded decent, but the truth was completely the opposite. After learning the gender of the child, this mother and son had very tacitly united on the same front. Anyway, if you can't give birth to a son, don't even think about entering my house. But now Kenneth seemed to have amnesia and completely forgotten what he had said before. He said righteously, "What's the use of having so much money? The most important role in a family is the father. Fatherly love can't be compensated by any amount of money." I laughed. Is that so? Then I have to hurry up and find a stepfather for the child. Thank you for the reminder. I'll go and sign up on the blind date website right away. Kenneth sneered. Do you think anyone will take a fancy to a woman with a child? I laughed even louder. Can't they take a fancy to the money if they don't like me? I'll give 2 houses and a car to whoever marries me. Is there anyone in this world who would think they have too much money? After saying that, ignoring his furious yelling on the other end, I directly hung up the phone. I think Kenneth probably couldn't fall asleep that night. The next morning, the property manager called and said that there was a Mr. Zhao outside looking for me. I guessed that Kenneth might come looking for me, but I didn't expect him to come so quickly. After all, it was a working day, and taking leave would mean deducting money, which was even more painful for him than taking his life. But I had no intention of meeting Kenneth. His mild and polite demeanor was just an illusion. In reality, he was irritable and prone to anger, and I didn't want to put myself in danger. I don't know any Mr. Zhao. It's the end of the year, and there are a lot of scammers. You should be careful and don't let any suspicious people in. A few minutes later, Kenneth called. He gritted his teeth and said, Melissa, don't push your luck. Do you know that I spent over 1,000 yuan on the plane ticket just to come and find you? Aren't you just holding a grudge because I didn't marry you? If you were greater and gave birth to a boy, there wouldn't be so many problems. Kenneth graduated from a postgraduate program, so he was considered to have a high education. Of course, he knew that whether it's a boy or a girl is mainly determined by the male side. He just wanted to find an excuse to belittle me. I was too lazy to argue with him anymore, so I directly hung up the phone and blocked him on my contact list. I thought that if I just ignored him, he would leave feeling embarrassed. But unexpectedly, half an hour later, I received a call from the police station. The police officer asked me if I knew a Mr. Kenneth. He reported to the police that you stole his daughter and asked you to return the child. At the request of the police officer, I went to the police station to receive mediation in person. It had been over 2 months since we last met. Kenneth had gained a little weight and still had an arrogant demeanor. He looked down his nose at me and said condescendingly, Melissa, I'm not here to quarrel with you. If you still want to be with me, go home and apologize to my mother. Maybe if she softens her heart, she'll agree to us getting the marriage certificate. But you have to have a second child as soon as possible. And this time it must be a boy. Also, you have to transfer those houses and stores under my name. After he said these words, even the police officer's look at him changed. But Kenneth didn't notice it at all. His eyes shifted downward, and suddenly he exploded. Melissa, you've changed to a new phone again. When will you get rid of this bad habit of spending money recklessly? He roared with his face red and his neck thick. Do you know that my mother is still using the old phone I replaced 3 years ago? Probably due to his original family background. Kenneth was particularly sensitive to money. In the past, I would take his fragile pride into account. But now, I couldn't wait to crush him into the mud. I sneered and retorted, It's your incompetence that your mother has to use an old phone. What does that have to do with me? Kenneth was choked speechless, his eyes wide open, and his face turning red with anger. The police officer asked us to calm down and then inquired about our relationship. I told the truth. We dated for a while before, but later we broke up due to various conflicts. Kenneth sneered. Break up? That sounds nice. Now that you've even had a child, who else would want you besides me? Melissa, take the opportunity to make up while you can. Don't make a scene and end up unable to clean up the mess. I looked at him calmly and said, who told you that the child is yours? I had consulted a lawyer. For children born out of wedlock, they are defaulted to be registered under the mother's household registration. If Kenneth wants to prove that the child is his, he must determine the blood relationship through a paternity test. But as long as I, as the mother of the child, don't agree, the child can't undergo a paternity test. This is an unsolvable situation. At this moment, not having the marriage certificate is actually a form of protection for me. Kenneth sensed my intention and said angrily, don't think you can deceive me with such a little trick. If you don't give the child back to me, I'll let everyone know that you're a woman no one wants. I turned to the police officer and said, he's personally attacking me and threatening me. That's against the law. Right. Since the two parties couldn't reach an agreement, this mediation ultimately ended without result. The police officer gave Kenneth a verbal warning, telling him not to disturb my life anymore in the future. I wasn't satisfied with this result, but I couldn't think of a better solution for the moment. When I came out of the police station hall, the weather suddenly changed, and there was a mixture of rain and snow. Kenneth had rushed to City A in a hurry and didn't bring much luggage. At this time, he was only wearing a thin down jacket and was shivering from the cold. I, on the other hand, got into the warm driver's seat and was about to drive away. I rolled down the car window halfway and looked at Kenneth disdainfully. We were never from the same world. Take this car for example. It's not expensive, only around 500,000 yuan. But if you were to buy it on your own, even if you didn't eat or drink, it would take you several years to afford it. Right. I knew Kenneth's character well. Once it came to money, he would become sensitive and explosive. But I just wanted to deliberately provoke him. Sure enough, upon hearing what I said, the last string in Kenneth's mind snapped instantly. He picked up a stone and angrily threw it at the car window. The consequence of this was that before we even left the police station gate, we were taken back inside. Kenneth tried to argue. This is a family matter. Is it against the law for me to smash my own car? I immediately stated that I had nothing to do with him and that I would definitely pursue the matter to the end. In the end, Kenneth was detained for 15 days for intentional injury and damaging other people's property. As for the specific amount of the car repair cost, it could only be determined after the appraisal, but it was estimated to be no less than 100,000 yuan. Upon hearing that he had to pay for the damages, Kenneth finally panicked. In the eyes of outsiders, he was an elite with a car, a house, and a good job. But I knew Kenneth's real financial situation. He not only had no savings but also owed a lot of money on his credit card. Every month, he was just trying to make ends meet and was in debt. Not to mention 100,000 yuan. He couldn't even afford 10,000 yuan now. Kenneth finally lost his bravado and tried to play the emotional card to make me give up pursuing the matter. Even a day of being husband and wife brings 100 days of affection. Melissa, don't act on impulse. If I have a criminal record, it will also affect our daughter in the future. But I just smiled and said, the insurance company will contact you about the follow-up matters. When I got home, my daughter was still asleep. Looking at her peaceful sleeping face, my heart softened, and I couldn't help but lean in and kiss her little cheek. This is my flesh and blood, the precious one I want to care for carefully. I won't let her have any connection with that scumbag Kenneth, and I won't give him any chance to get close to my daughter. I'm used to only sharing good news and not bad news. There are some things I haven't even told my parents. Once when I was logging into the computer, I saw the search history that Kenneth hadn't had time to delete. Can a husband inherit his wife's property when his wife passes away? How can I legally transfer my wife's savings? How can I artificially cause dystocia? Looking at these search records, I couldn't help but feel a chill down my spine. I knew Kenneth had a bad character, but I didn't expect him to be so vicious. He not only wanted my money but also my life. I couldn't help but feel scared. If I had given birth to a boy, would I have not had the chance to recognize his true nature and thus lost my life in confusion? During the period when Kenneth was in detention, his mother often called and cursed with all kinds of swear words. I wasn't angry but recorded all the calls and backed them up as evidence. I had a hunch that this strange mother and son wouldn't let it go easily. Sure enough, a month later, my hunch became a reality. Kenneth's mother somehow found out the address of my family's factory and brought a group of media with her. She knelt on the ground in front of the camera, crying with snot and tears. "Melissa, this vicious woman has taken all the money my son earned through hard work and even took the child away and won't let us see her." My son came to her to ask for an explanation, but she and her lover ganged up and beat my son up. Now he's still lying in bed unable to get up. I'm an old woman, and today I'm willing to risk my life to seek justice. Kenneth's mother was the most dramatic person I had ever met. Crying, making a scene, and threatening to commit suicide were her common tricks. I had gotten along with her for a while, so I naturally knew her true nature. But people who didn't know the truth were easily deceived, because the scene was so chaotic. Even though the police were called in time to disperse the crowd, it still caused a small-scale discussion. There were even rumors on the internet, and even our company's partners came to inquire. My parents were very angry. "This is simply nonsense. When did we find someone to beat her son? And they said we took his money. Our family lacks nothing but money." I shook my head and said, "Gossip is human nature. People only believe what they want to hear." Any explanation at this time would seem pale and powerless. Only a powerful counterattack could turn the situation around. Since the day Kenneth revealed his true colors, I had started to pay attention to saving all kinds of evidence. Chat records, videos, recordings. Now they finally came in handy. I had a clear conscience, so I wasn't afraid of making the matter bigger. They could find the media, and so could I. They could stir up public opinion, and so could I. Moreover, with my money and channels, I could find more and more professional media. I found the company's legal affairs and sued this mother and son for slander and infringement of my reputation. Then I contacted Self Media to release a lawyer's letter and a clarification video, and stated that I would definitely pursue the matter to the end. Soon, there was a complete reversal. Kenneth's true face was exposed to the public. The image of being an elite and high-quality person was just an appearance. In reality, he was just a Phoenix man who tried to marry into a wealthy family but failed, and became furious after being seen through. The deceived netizens were extremely angry, and the power of public opinion began to fight back. For a while, Kenneth was like a rat crossing the street, and even his home address and workplace were dug out. Although Kenneth's company wasn't a government institution, it was still a relatively well-known enterprise in the industry. His actions had already had a bad impact on the company's image. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Kenneth was fired. Upon hearing this news, I was in an extremely happy mood. Kenneth had always thought highly of himself, and this job was also an important source of pride for him. Now that he had been fired, it must have been a shock for him. With the mentality of watching the excitement, I found a friend in the same industry as Kenneth and asked about his recent situation. My friend said that Kenneth had a bad reputation in the industry, and if he didn't change his career, he wouldn't be able to find a decent job in the future. And that was indeed the case. After being fired, Kenneth originally wanted to take a break at home for a while until the public opinion subsided. But his mother didn't agree. "You're just idling at home and not making money. How can you keep spending without earning?" Fortunately, your aunt said she would take me to do micro-business. As long as we invest 50,000 yuan in goods first, we can double our earnings later. Kenneth couldn't help but say, "Mom, I can't find a job for the time being. Don't mess around." Kenneth's mother was unhappy. "I've already agreed with them. If I back out now, how can I face them? Besides, this is a good opportunity to make money. Don't you have the compensation from the company in your hand? I really raised you for nothing." There was no other way, so Kenneth had to transfer 50,000 yuan to her. But before one problem was solved, another one arose. That night, Kenneth's sister called to borrow money. "My son will go to primary school next year. I used my connections to get him a spot in a key school. I still need some money to smooth things over. Please transfer 50,000 yuan to me first." Kenneth's sister dropped out of school and got married early, and her financial situation was average. Now that she had just given birth to her third child, her life was in an even greater mess. She often cried poor to Kenneth, and Kenneth would try his best to help her. After all, he was the most promising pillar of the family. But now the situation was different. Kenneth said reluctantly, "Sis, you know that I recently resigned and don't have much money on me. The other side immediately became anxious. Kenneth, you can't forget your roots. If it weren't for me dropping out of school and working to support your studies, could you be where you are today? It's a big deal for your nephew to go to school. How can you, as an uncle, stand by and do nothing? You don't know how much effort I put into finding these connections. At worst, I'll pay you back later. Kenneth certainly knew that it was impossible, just like the money he had lent before, which had never been paid back. But he still transferred 50,000 yuan to her, just like that. In less than a month, all of Kenneth's compensation money was gone. Looking at the credit card bill and listening to the debt collection call from the insurance company, he finally couldn't hold on anymore. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Kenneth. He changed his previous arrogance and sincerely apologized to me, saying that he knew he was wrong. Melissa, I was so stupid before and didn't know how to cherish. You are the best person to me in this world. Please give me another chance. I will definitely make up for you and the child. You want to get married, right? We'll go and get the marriage certificate tomorrow. Do you prefer a Chinese style or a Western style wedding? It's all up to you. I couldn't help laughing on the spot. Kenneth, do you really think you're something special? Kenneth became anxious. Even if you don't think about yourself, you should think about the child. She's still so young. She can't grow up without a father's love. She can't grow up without a complete family. I interrupted him. I can find 100 stepfathers for her. You don't need to worry about that. Kenneth immediately showed his true colors and roared angrily. Melissa, if you dare to let my daughter call another man dad, I will never let you go. I was too lazy to listen to his nonsense and directly blocked this number as well. I didn't take Kenneth's threat seriously at first, but a few days later, the aunt who bought groceries for our family came to me privately. She said that every time she went out recently, she always felt like someone was following her. I'm not sure if it's just my imagination, but after thinking about it, I think I should tell you. I sincerely thanked her and gave her a separate bonus. It seemed that Kenneth was bolder than I had imagined. But come to think of it, he was now in a lot of debt, and his career was almost ruined. He was almost at the end of his rope. In this situation, coaxing me back was the most cost-effective solution. I knew very well that to deal with someone like Kenneth, I had to strike hard to teach him a lesson. But before I could figure out how to fight back, I received a call from the police first. Are you Mr. Kenneth's family member? Please come to the hospital. Naturally, I didn't have a family relationship with Kenneth, but out of curiosity, I agreed. Moreover, with the police around, I didn't believe he would dare to do anything out of line. When I arrived at the hospital, Kenneth was lying in bed receiving treatment. The doctor said that he had fallen off the wall, resulting in a broken leg and needed to stay in bed for recuperation. In the face of the police, Kenneth was in tears. He said that he had come to City A to visit the child, but I wouldn't let him see the child. She took the child away without saying a word and wouldn't let us see her. My mother misses the child so much that she's almost cried her eyes out. Officer, I missed the child so much that I wanted to climb over the wall to take a look. But he, a person who had been sitting in the office all year round, didn't have the ability to do such a difficult task. Kenneth climbed halfway up the wall, lost his grip, and fell off, fainting by the roadside. It was only when the sanitation worker found him in the morning while cleaning that he was sent to the hospital. His performance was very emotional, but I just sneered. He could deceive the police, but he couldn't deceive me. The excuse of visiting the child was false. The real intention was to steal the child and threaten me to give him money. Although Kenneth's behavior was illegal, it didn't cause any serious consequences. Therefore, the police only criticized and educated him and didn't impose any substantial punishment. After the police left, Kenneth became even more complacent. He said righteously, "Go and pay the hospitalization fee, and buy some daily necessities. Stay here and take care of me tonight." I was already angry, but when I heard him say that, I laughed instead. "I don't have any experience and might not take good care of you. How about this? I'll hire a nurse for you." Kenneth frowned. "Okay, but you have to send 3 meals on time. I'm not used to the food in the hospital." After leaving the hospital, I found the phone number of an agency from a small advertisement on a utility pole and called directly. "Do you have any nurses? I want the one with the lowest rating and the cheapest price." After a while, the nurse arrived. She was a burly and somewhat fierce-looking woman. She said bluntly, "I don't take care of paralyzed people. It's an extra 100 yuan for helping with nighttime trips." Pay a deposit of 500 yuan first. I directly transferred 3,000 yuan to her and said that the patient's family wasn't in the local area and asked her to take good care of the patient. The nurse still had a bad attitude after receiving the money, but I was very satisfied because this was exactly the effect I wanted. As expected, Kenneth couldn't stand being taken care of. For just one day, the water in the cup was cold. He could never find anyone to help him when he needed to eat or use the toilet. And he was disturbed by snoring at night and couldn't sleep well. He wanted to contact me, but all the numbers he had were blocked. He called his family, but his family was already in chaos. His mother had done business with others and lost all the money, crying and asking Kenneth to find a solution. His sister said that the child had set off firecrackers and damaged a luxury car in the community, and she was anxiously asking Kenneth what to do. Just then, a text message came in on his phone, reminding him that the credit card payment was due. Kenneth's eyes went dark, and he fainted. 2 days later, the nurse called me and said that Kenneth had left the hospital on his own. She shouted, "He left on his own. It's not that I didn't take good care of him. I won't refund the money." I smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. Consider it your hard-earned money." To prevent Kenneth from causing more trouble, I specifically asked someone to keep an eye on his whereabouts. But it turned out that Kenneth was too busy dealing with his own problems to bother me. He had already been in a lot of debt, and now his family was dragging him down. So his financial situation was in a complete mess. As a last resort, he had to mortgage his house and borrow usury from the local gangster. But he could borrow the money but couldn't pay it back. The gangster directly sent people to break one of his legs and threatened to beat him up every time they saw him. Kenneth was like a homeless dog, running away with his family overnight. And there was no news of him since then. The next time I saw Kenneth was 6 years later. At that time, I was taking my daughter, Kathy, to a summer camp. The children, led by the teacher, were happily visiting the museum. There were several staff members maintaining order on the scene, and I recognized one of them as Kenneth. He was wearing a work uniform, with a sunken face, a stubbly beard, and he was so thin that he seemed almost weightless. He was completely different from before. Kenneth obviously recognized me too. He was a bit stunned. "Melissa." I took a step back and said calmly, "You've mistaken me for someone else." Kenneth was excited. "I would recognize you even if you turned to ashes. You are Melissa." Just then, my daughter came bouncing over. Kenneth's eyes immediately became even more eager. "This is our daughter, right? She's grown so big. Melissa, let's make up. Let the child have a complete family. Let's have a boy in the future and live a good life together as a family." In this situation, I had 1,000 swear words I wanted to say, but in the end, I held them back. My daughter was still here, and I couldn't put her in danger. My daughter looked at me curiously and asked me who he was. Kenneth said eagerly, "I'm your father." My daughter blinked and said seriously, "You're lying. You're not my father. My father is tall and handsome. You look like an old man." Kenneth immediately exploded. He looked at me angrily. "You dare to cheat on me?" He was still as irritable and angry as before. I protected my daughter and stepped back, and came up with an idea in a hurry. "Kenneth, Buck doesn't know you're here, does he? Do you believe that I'll tell him the news?" Buck was the name of the local gangster back then. The moment he heard this name, a look of fear appeared on Kenneth's face. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that I had won the bet. Kenneth had always been a bully who feared the strong and picked on the weak. And he hadn't changed at all over the years. After the crisis was resolved, I called the museum to file a complaint. The administrator cursed. "How dare you harass the customers? How did you learn during the pre-job training? You won't get your bonus this month," he continued. Kenneth was bowing and scraping, being extremely servile, and had lost all his previous arrogance. My daughter and I stood in the distance and watched quietly. My daughter raised her innocent little face. "Is he my father?" My daughter has been very smart since she was a child. Instead of waiting for her to find out on her own, it's better to be honest from the beginning. Therefore, since she was old enough to understand, I have never hidden anything about the past from her. She knew that her mother and father had broken up a long time ago, but she had never felt inferior because of this, because she had received a lot of love, which gave her the confidence to face everything calmly. I said helplessly, "I'm sorry, baby. Mom didn't have good judgment before." My daughter nodded. "It doesn't matter. Mom can change it in the future. But I really want a handsome father. Mom, you have to work hard. I can help you check the candidates." The end.